Hey everyone, so we're back. Gonna do an application of Bona ClearSeal on this white oak floor with our T-bar. So we've got two different application methods we've showed. One is roller, next is gonna be T-bar with this great new product, and particularly on white oak, I think you're going to see how good of a product ClearSeal is. Because when we're T-barring, right, we're putting a big long puddle down our starting wall, and it can sit there for a while, especially when we're first cutting in. Some guys suffer, burn marks coming in, or that edge of their sealer actually setting up and having a visible line. Then you're not going to get that at all with ClearSeal. The pH level is really balanced in it, so it doesn't pull any of the tannins or any of the other reactives out of the floor. And you'll see as it wets out, it gets everything exactly the same color. So what we've done to prep this floor, according to the directions, right? We sanded it to 100. We finished out with 120. Then we Tampico brushed the floor because we wanted to get as much of the fine dust out of this surface as we could. We vacuumed around the sides and the detail areas where the buffer with the Tampico wouldn't fit. And then we even dry tacked the floor a couple times with a Bona mop and the microfiber mop pad, tacking pad, just to, again, we want as much of the fine dust off here as possible. The cleaner we can keep this floor, the less work we're gonna have to do later. In fact, again, a big advantage of all Bona products is I don't have to abrade them for adhesion, only for smoothness, as long as 48 hours. But since my last coat have not gone by, once it's been down for a couple days, then I'm gonna hit it real quick with a conditioning pad. But otherwise, you can come in, simply tack it off to get any residual dust, put on your next coat, if you keep it clean. So, as with everything else, right, the beauty is in the details. The more we can do to keep this floor clean, the less work we're gonna have to do afterwards. So the other thing I've done to prepare the product is I've already shaken it up, let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes, and installed the medium strainer into the neck already, just to help make sure we have a clean product. All right, so let's get going with our T-bar. So the other thing we've done with our applicators is we pre-wet them, both our cut-in pad and our T-bar, but then have taken just terry cloth rag and got them almost dry. So they're just damp. We want to do that so they don't suck a bunch of the finish up or a bunch of the sealer up first. Before it starts putting down a good application of product at 500 to 600 square feet per gallon. So again, T-bar method, what we're gonna do is we're gonna pour a puddle out along our whole starting wall. We're gonna cut that in with our cut-in pad, and then we're gonna use the T-bar. Some people call it a snow plow, but if you're in an area of the country where it doesn't snow, that's gonna be hard to follow. So we're just gonna use it to move that puddle across the floor, board to board to board, row to row, and then we have to go back and also cut back in behind ourselves or feather out on the end. So you'll see that as we get going, but this is a great method for, again, strip flooring, plank flooring, anything that runs in a nice line like this in a wider open area. So we want to pour out about a 4 to 6 inch wide line of finish to start. Take our cut-in pad. And I won't cheat, even though we don't have real walls up here. I will pretend like we have real walls, trim work. So the purpose of my cut-in pad, right, is to take that sealer, get up right next to my wall. And I don't want to have the puddle too close to the wall, because one, if I have a little bit of a slant to my wall or my floor and it starts going underneath my trim work, then I tend to have a puddle that works its way back out once I've gone past there. So, and just cut in down the floor on one of the sides, and we go pick up our T-bar and start our passes. When we're running our passes with our T-bar, we want it to hit the puddle to hit about in the middle of the T-bar. We don't want it to go up too high. Otherwise, it tends to feed up over the side, over the edge, and then we may have a streak in the floor. So let me just get that straightened out first. And like we do with the roller, I always like to go back to where I ran the cut-in pad and just run my T-bar down there too, just to make sure I've got, better chance at having an equal application rate from applicator to applicator. Also with T-barring, I don't have to go back and forth this way because I don't have a lot of finish here, but I do down here, or sealer. I can go back down here, grab this sealer, and pull it towards the other end. And by cutting in or feathering, I can do that either before or after I run by with the T-bar. When I'm working by myself, I prefer to do it after, so I can just make several passes with my T-bar. And I'm not worrying about my edges quite yet. I'll do one more pass, and then I'll go back and feather in those ends. Then you take your cut-in pad, go back, reach back into the floor, and just straighten out any turn marks you might have in the floor and make sure that all the wood has product on it. If I need to, like again, I'm a little short of sealer right here, I could pour some more out, but I just want to soak up a little bit with my cut-in pad, pull it back over here, and again, just feather out into the floor. When I'm feathering, I'm kind of holding my cut-in pad up on its edge like this. I don't have it all the way down fully flat on the ground and then trying to pull it up, because I'm trying to feather with just that edge. So I just want to lightly pull that across the floor and think that I'm just getting the top of the sealer there and not necessarily everything else. So I can set this down now where I think I'm going to be the next time I want to put that into place. I can add a little more product here to my puddle. Don't need a whole lot on this side. And continue with my passes. Cut in where we just went and feather out into the floor. Come down to the other side, pick some more finish out of our puddle if we need to. Make sure we've got everything coated, and then cut in and feather out into the floor. And again, you'll see how ClearSeal, right, I had some definite lines here, and when I got everything wetted out, those lines completely went away. So the pH level is really nice and balanced on this product to prevent some of that tannin pull and burn-in that guys may have with other products. So when I'm getting close to the end, there's a couple things. One, I want to make sure that I'm watching how much of a puddle I've got out. And I also don't want to move this puddle too close to this wall before I start doing my exit move, which is called an S-turn and feather, just because I want to give myself some room to work. So I'm probably only going to make one, maybe two more passes with this, and then we'll start our exit maneuver. So first thing I want to do is make sure, and again, I don't want too much, but make sure I've got enough finish out here. One that's going to keep my edge wet, but I don't want too much that's going to cause me to have to remove, some big puddles and stuff at the end with a rag or whatever I'm doing there. So I'm going to come down, just cut this in right here because I don't want to leave that dry. And I can use even the other end of my cut-in pad to feather that out into the floor. Come back up to the top, cut everything in up here, and pull this a good ways down the floor, just trying to wet it out a little bit there. And then we're going to do what we call S-turns and feather. So I'm grabbing some finish here. I'm going to work it back and forth across the floor, again, making sure I'm wetting everything out. I'm not putting pressure on this because I want to have the same application right here as I did everywhere else on the floor. And then when I get a little bit of ways from where I started, I can do my feathers. So I'm also going to want to make sure I pat out or squeeze the excess finish out of there, so when I reach out, it doesn't leave a puddle there. But now to feather, I can reach out and simply pull back on my applicator to feather out all the S-turn marks that I just put in the floor. So then I get back to, I'm doing my S-turns. I can cut in a little more. Don't forget to feather. And also when we pat out, we want to pat out in the same direction of the floor. Try not to pat out across the floor because again, you may leave a mark. And we're just trying to avoid that. Some guys like to feather this way by pushing away. And it's personal preference. I just prefer to do this, land it very gently. I'm even holding it up off the floor and pulling it back. To me, if you feather by pushing away, the danger there is you catch a little bit of a puddle or something on your way out, and now that's on your T-bar, and now you fling drips out into the floor where you're probably gonna have to go walk in the finish to go get those if you see them at all. So that's why I prefer to feather by pulling back and not pushing away. And again, I can get a mark here too, right? If I reach this out and plop it on the floor, so I'm just reaching it out and holding it up off the floor, just trying to feather the very top of the sealer is my thought process so that I don't leave a mark. All right, so we got a little bit of a dirty puddle. So what we'll do is we'll take our rag, soak up the dirty part of it. That's why I also like to keep a plastic trash can at my doorway. In case we got to do any of this, then I can throw the rag in there. And we'll finish out most of the rest of this. I'll probably hit it with my T-bar again just to feather out into the floor there. But make sure everything's nice and wetted out. Now I could go ahead and feather with my cut-in pad if I wanted to as well, but I'll take my T-bar, and again, here's where I will probably push to feather as opposed to pulling, even getting around the door frame there, and that's it. All right, so that's our T-bar application with Bona ClearSeal on unfinished white oak. You'll see what a beautiful product that ClearSeal is. We didn't get any burn-in, we didn't get any lap lines because the pH in that product is so well balanced. And just some tricks with the T-bar as far as cutting in after yourself, how to do your S-turns to get out of the room, and using your cut-in pad as the final down here. So we hope this has been helpful for you to see how you can successfully apply Bona waterborne sealers, in particular Bona ClearSeal, on an unfinished wood floor and have beautiful results.